Senator, there really is nothing that I can say to follow up after you delivered that incredibly heartfelt, such raw emotion, because it is something that is so intimate and personal to you. But I'm going to offer a small correction to what you said. Republicans did want this. They wanted this. The Republicans wanted this, but now it is squarely the dog with its teeth firmly on the bumper of that car. They have caught the car. So now they want to backpedal like Carrie Lake and pretend like this is so outrageous and this is not what they intended it to be. How do we hold them accountable for them wanting Trump being the architect of the fall of Roe and the Republicans being responsible for you having to stand in front of the world and say and explain what happened to you?
Thank you so much for having me here today. And I think that what's important to keep in mind is that we are going to have Republicans voting for this ballot measure when it comes to the ballot in November, and that plenty of Republicans receive abortion care. And I think that that's the point that I'm trying to drive home, is that this is really self-defeating, and that it is the Republican leaders and these elected officials who are behaving exactly like we knew they would, who are behaving the way that they have for decades, slowly eroding these rights over time. And now they're really in a tricky situation, because the Republicans in Arizona don't want to allow a Democratic bill to be the solution to this problem. They don't want to allow us to have a win. They don't want us to get credit for cleaning up their mess. But they also are not going to be able to put forward a bill of their own, because the infighting right now in the Republican Party is pretty intense. So I'm not really sure what it is that they plan to do with this situation, but it is imperative that we hold them accountable. We cannot let them forget that this is a problem that they created, and that even if we do come up with a short-term solution for this problem, even if we do repeal this ban, they are going to continue to chip away at these rights and to erode these rights for decades to come. We really have to make our voices heard in November. Electing pro-choice candidates is our only solution.
Vice President Harris stating today in your state of Arizona that Trump is to blame for this. He is the architect of the fall of Roe, and she attributed it a lot to the fact that we have 3 Supreme Court justices who were appointed by Donald Trump during his administration. You know, I've always said, Senator, that the fall of Roe didn't happen overnight. I think there was a little bit of some complacency that went into the idea that there's no way that it could have ever happened, because there's been decades of precedent. Admittedly, we got snowed during those confirmation processes and during those confirmation hearings. But, I mean, how important is it for people to also understand, too, that the judges that are making these decisions, some of whom are elected into the offices, some of whom face merit retention votes, like in my state of Florida, for example, that the judges also need to have some accountability for what's happening, too?
No, that's 100% true. We have Republican appointed judges who are responsible for this decision that happened here in Arizona. And I think that's where the conversation has to shift to these down ballot races. Yes, it's very important to focus on the top of the ticket. This happened because of Donald Trump. There is no question about that. And that is an imperative part of the conversation. But what happens in our local government, in our local legislatures, and with our local judges is equally important and can have just as much, if not more, of an effect. We see it happening state after state after state as these rights are being withdrawn and taken away. And the solution time and time again is for citizens to be able to come and take that power back. But we know that these fights are going to continue, and that we really need to obtain majorities and retain the White House in order to make the difference that we need to make after November.
I do want to share my sympathy to you, Senator, for your loss, and the fact, again, that you have to be so transparent about something that's so personal to you, and yet you're doing it so that I can have an opportunity to have access to reproductive rights. My daughter can have that access, that this can be something. I can't begin to express how much I appreciate what you've done to be able to speak out about this. I know it hasn't been easy for you, so my sympathy.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. What I will say is that women should not have to re-traumatize themselves over and over and over again to be able to access appropriate health care, to be able to have the rights that they deserve. But I also think that it's so important for those who do feel comfortable speaking out to speak out loud and as broad of an audience as they possibly can. We have to have these conversations because this moment is so critical. And if we don't tell our stories, then the people who are controlling the conversation are wrong. What they're saying about abortion is wrong. What they try to the picture that they try to paint of who the abortion patient is, it's wrong. And we have to take back that narrative. We have to take back that story. And so I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the opportunity to do it. I'm sad that my pregnancy didn't progress. We've tried and tried to have a baby and to grow our family. And I don't know how people in Arizona are supposed to feel comfortable trying to grow their families when we're in this really inhospitable environment for pregnant people right now. You know, this is a hostile environment to be pregnant in Arizona, not knowing whether or not you're going to be able to get the care you need if something goes wrong. It's unacceptable, and we just have to do something about it. And this is the best that I can do, and I'm going to keep doing it.
Well, it's more than just good. It's amazing. And again, thank you so much, Arizona State Senator Eva Birch, for being here and for sharing your story and for being such a strong advocate, like I said, so we all can have a chance. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
This is irresponsible. The public school teachers don't even want the bill. They're not even asking you for this. We just passed legislation to have SROs in every school. Can we see if that works yet? I'm upset, not out of because I don't like you all individually, because I'm mad because this bill puts my child at risk. And all the mothers out here that just got put out, they're saying their children at risk. Look at that gallery. They're asking you not to do this. Put partisan politics aside. I ask you this all the time, but this bill is dangerous. Don't do it. Teachers don't want it. The school districts don't want it. Nobody doesn't want it. It's not going to work. It's going to cause more school shootings. What happened today is a gallery full of mothers who are concerned, and we put them out because you're trying to put guns in teachers' hands. We ought to be ashamed, Mr. Speaker.
That was the scene in the Tennessee Senate this week. State Senator London Lamar with her 8-month-old baby and a microphone in her hands, begging Republicans not to vote to put more guns in schools. Yes, more guns, not less. This week, Republican lawmakers in Tennessee advanced legislation that would allow some teachers to carry concealed guns. Last April, just days after 3 children and 3 staff members were killed in a mass shooting at the Covenant School in Nashville, Donald Trump gave a speech pushing for armed teachers. And so a year later, Tennessee Republicans have decided that their solution to gun violence in schools is more guns in schools. During this week's legislative hearing, there were vocal protests against the bill before state troopers. State troopers removed those protesting from the Senate gallery. Also in the Senate were parents of survivors of the Covenant School shooting. The Tennessean reports Beth Gebhard watched the Senate proceedings Tuesday with tears in her eyes, alongside several other mothers of students at the school. She said her children, 9-year-old Ava and 12-year-old Hudson, survived the shooting because of well-trained teachers and police officers doing their job. She can't imagine a teacher having to also deal with confronting a shooter, especially one armed with an assault-style rifle. A handgun will do nothing against that. If what had happened on March 27th had gone down the way that it did, with a teacher armed with a handgun attempting to put the perpetrator out, my children would likely be dead. The Tennessee House of Representatives is expected to vote on the bill on Monday. Joining us now is Democratic State Representative Justin J. Pearson of Tennessee and Tennessee mom Beth Gebhard. Her children attend the Covenant School in Nashville. I want to thank the both of you for being here. You're both obviously concerned about the future of the children in Tennessee. Beth, I want to start with you. I can't imagine. You have a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old. They still attend Covenant School. You were at that Senate hearing. You were a part of that gallery. The mothers, the parents, they were removed when they were speaking out about wanting to protect their children?
It was appalling. It was truly the most outrageous experience I've had in my life, really. There was just such a level of confusion and pain, and we felt discarded. It was just bizarre and painful.
Representative Pearson, I know that you're familiar with the being silenced when you're trying to speak out in that hall, but what is the justification that is coming from your colleagues on the other side of the aisle to vote on a bill and approve it that is not wanted by anyone? It's been tried before in some other counties in Tennessee, hasn't worked. And I understand there's an opt-out in this legislation, and I understand maybe that the voices in support of this say, well, there's training and there's, a certain component of it. But how is it possible that they're so tone deaf about what's really wanted to protect the children in these schools?
This is a dangerous piece of legislation that puts at risk every child in our schools, including putting our teachers at risk as well. You don't have a single teacher in our district or in this state who are asking the legislature to pass this type of legislation. And they certainly aren't asking for us to do it by kicking out mothers from the galleries and those who are advocating on behalf of their kids in the process. What we are seeing is the cowardice of the Republican Party in our state refusing to address the epidemic of gun violence, which is the #1 killer of our children. And instead of ending the epidemic by doing something about the guns that are being proliferated in our communities and doing something that would stand up to the National Rifle Association, the Tennessee Firearms Association, they're attacking parents and they're actually making our schools less safe. They're bringing guns into gun-free zones. And this is only going to have horrendous ramifications for children who will access these weapons and these guns, for teachers who might accidentally harm or shoot their students. These are the real challenges that are going to come from this terrible legislation.
Beth, I don't know what you think about now when you think about your children being in a classroom where, despite best efforts, accidents happen, as the representative talked about. But more importantly, you've had to live through the trauma of a school shooting for your 2 children. They've had to go through that trauma, and they blessedly survived it. You've spoken about the fact that these teachers were focusing on the kids and making sure that they stay safe. These teachers were not focusing on, let me grab a gun and try to get into a shootout in a hallway at the kid's classroom or in the school.
I spoke with my son's teacher about that day. My son was in the 2nd grade. He was adjacent to the 3rd grade where most of the shooting and damage occurred. And in talking to her about this, she explained that in that circumstance, there was absolutely no way that she was going to leave 14 innocent children alone to go, confront the gunman. The bottom line is that our educators need to be educators. They do not need to also wear the hat of a law enforcement officer. It does not make any sense. And it would have been utterly terrifying for my child. When I think about him and how much he needed her, she told me that in that time, she went to bring the shade down. And the shooter, the back of the shooter, she was in the hall. She was right there. And our teacher knew in that moment her one job was to keep herself silent and her children silent. And that's what they did. They practiced breathing. They watched her breath go in and out, her chest rise and down. And she just told them to follow her. And they held hands and they waited it out. If she had left that room, there is no doubt in my mind my children would not have survived.
I have a 9-year-old who's in 3rd grade. I don't even know how you're able to share this. I'm grateful that you are. And then I hear this, and, Representative, I want to harp on this for our viewers to understand. Mothers like Beth Gebhardt, who talk about this experience, they're being silenced. These are not politicians, right? These are not lobbyists for anti-gun or anti-Second Amendment kind of propositions. These are parents that only want to keep their kids safe, and yet they're being silenced. They're being removed from a public forum because they just want to share their concerns about really flawed and dangerous policies and legislation that's getting passed in your state?
This is the way that the Tennessee Republican Party works. They silence the voices of dissent in order that they can be corrupt, and use their power and be corrupted, absolutely using it. And they wield it against anybody that they believe is going to stand up against them. This is why Representative Jones and I were expelled. This is why the mothers are consistently being kicked out of the gallery and kicked out of committee rooms, even during our special session to address public safety. They are not interested in the safety of our kids. They're not interested in the safety of our teachers. They do not want to end the gun violence epidemic. They only want to proliferate it with bad policies and legislation that is supported by the Tennessee Firearms Association and supported by the National Rifle Association. They are not interested in making our community safer. And we have a responsibility to continue to show up. And I think Beth and all the mothers, like Mothers Over Murder and other organizations that are standing up in this moment to say that there has to be a better way and that this is not the way for us to move forward. But this is on par with how the Republican Party abuses its power. This is not new to me. It is not surprising to me. The removal of people from the galleries anytime that they sometimes are clapping or that they're speaking up in a building that their tax dollars pay for. The Republican Party, Cameron Sexton, William Lambert, they work hard, McNally, Lieutenant Governor McNally, to silence those voices of dissension. And that leads to really terrible and awful legislation that is going to lead to more kids losing their lives to being passed and being pushed through in our state house.
Representative, so what is the solution?
The solution first for this bill is it does not need to go forward. We need to vote this down, and we need to listen to teachers. We need to listen to parents. We need to listen to those who are saying, let's make our community safer. We need to pass safe storage laws. We need to prevent guns from ever getting to the schoolhouse door by preventing people from being able to access weapons of war and being able to get weapons in our state and firearms in our state without even having a permit or taking any educational classes. There are so many research-driven and data-based things that we could do to make our community safer and end the proliferation of guns and the epidemic of gun violence. But the Republican Party first need to be humble enough to listen and realize they've gotten this wrong, and they've made our state and our communities and our schools a lot less safe.
Beth, my apologies. I did not realize that I had cut you off. Please, the last word.
No, well, I wanted to first thank Representative Pearson. We are all so grateful for people like him that are speaking up for what we all want to see happen. What I was going to add is that for me, this is new. It's not new for him. It is very new for me. I have unfortunately, I think, put a lot of trust in our elected officials to be reasonable, to be the voice of all of us. And what I have seen is appalling. It is as though a confederacy of dunces is at work here. They are passing laws that we have to live by and die by. And it is appalling. It's outrageous. And so I would add that next week there is, like he said, an opportunity, it may be up for vote through the House. And if folks like me in the state of Tennessee recognize that this law is dangerous and should not be made into law, they can text TN to 64433, 64433. And then it'll walk you right through it. It'll seamlessly connect you to a law. And hopefully, and just say, we want to vote no on House Bill 1202.
Tennessee Democratic Representative Justin Pearson and Beth Gebhardt, thank you both so much for being here and for spending the time with us on this important topic. I appreciate both of you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We've got to keep fighting.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.